Hey everybody, welcome back to Illiterate Book Club. I'm Matt,
And I'm John.
and we just
I'm actually John the Broken right now.
yeah, it's funny. I didn't even think about that. I never even made that connection.
That was the last episode of Game of Thrones.
It's kind of it was bittersweet, kind of the way they said it would be.
Yeah,
Definitely some stuff that's kind of I don't necessarily feel like they foreshadowed it all the way. I mean, which I guess could be because
a
they're
little bit.
there's
But I mean, there was always those kind of twists that Game of Thrones has thrown at us that weren't fully foreshadowed, but they make sense.
right. Yeah.
And so this is what it kind of feels like a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it because, I mean, the main spoilers, obviously. This is a discussion.
If you haven't watched this episode, then you're behind the times.
Right.
Go watch it and come back.
Yeah. But like and subscribe. No. I mean, all the Starks made it out. That's cool. Or alive,
I mean,
at
the
least.
ones that were still living.
Right. The ones that were alive made it out alive, which was kind of surprising.
Tyrion made it out alive.
Right, and the prophecy for her, came true about being betrayed for love. I mean, it was hard to watch in a way. You know what I mean? Which last week was hard to watch too. But that part, I mean, the first 15 minutes were hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was an inevitable thing at this point.
Right.
I think after last week's episode, we all collectively knew that Dany was not going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like he was even at that point, kind of like what she was doing with him for a while, almost begging him for love. He was almost doing that with her, just trying to plead for her sanity.
Any mercy at all.
Yeah, plead for her sanity. Yeah.
And so
I mean, that's, I guess we're kind of obviously Tyrion throwing down what he threw down, but I mean, we're skipping right, I guess, ahead because it wasn't that big of a part.
Yeah, I mean, we begin with them coming after the whole battle, right? And then Jon and Tyrion and all of them see them still executing people even after the fight, and that was a real tense scene.
I was a little surprised at Grey Worm's not just killing them. You know what I mean? Like, to a certain degree. You know what I mean? Like, that he kept them as a prisoner. And I guess he was smart enough to know that there was a lot of armies that would be pissed if they just died.
Maybe, or at this point, you could maybe argue the point that Grey Worm, along with the Unsullied, are just soldiers. They don't make the decisions like that. They just implement.
Right, but I just felt like he was extremely loyal to her.
Absolutely.
To
the end.
And so,
I mean...
But it looked like he was sick of fighting too.
I mean, he was angry, obviously, and so then that kind of, they had a few different jumps in there, but the first big one was the couple weeks after Dany's death.
Yeah.
And so I mean, which we could even talk about Dany's death for a second. I mean, you had that nice loving moment of I love you so much that I'm going to stab you in the heart in the middle of a kiss.
Yeah, that was really I know it played on that Nessa or something like that. I can't remember.
Something from the books that I didn't read, but he heard about.
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't read it because this is a literate book club. But I mean, so it definitely had played off of some prophecy that was being foreshadowed in the books, and it also played off the prophecy of her where she saw the. We kind of talked about that, but how she was betrayed. She was about to touch which she did get to touch
the Iron Throne.
Right.
She walks up and the whole place is caved in, and so it really was like a good, pretty. I don't remember because I haven't watched it since it happened, but in the early seasons, how she had that vision of walking into the throne room and snow. Or ash everywhere, whatever you thought it was, and then her going up to the Iron Throne, and
I mean, and I think a lot of it was kind of interesting because that's kind of been a staple of Game of Thrones about when things happen, you go back and you look at the episode and then you realize, oh man, that was so foreshadowed. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things are, oh man, that was so telling that was going to happen. But you didn't, at the time it shocked you, but then when you go back in earlier episodes, you see that the seeds had been planted.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a mark of any good story. I think, I mean, my criticisms, and we'll we're gonna talk. We're gonna have a different video about like what we, maybe our entire thoughts of the entire series, and we're focusing more on this episode.
Just this episode, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I do want to think about this season, about how I've heard criticisms, and I like this season overall, but I do think the last 2 seasons were very kind of rushed, and I don't understand why they didn't have the extra few episodes to
I mean, it was
hash that out. I think they stuck the landing at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, I think this season has definitely been
Right.
more solid than the previous season. Like the previous season, just the whole season felt like a setup season.
Right.
I mean, you had a couple of big moments, couple of big battles, but it was all set up for this.
Right, and I think they kind of, honestly, their love story kind of felt a little forced, because, again, I don't think they had enough episodes. Like, they should have had more episodes to make.
If you had a little more time to really develop those relationships, maybe.
Yeah, so I guess
I see where you're going with that.
We can continue along with the episode. So you get to the council. You said you fast forward.
So fast forward, and you got the council. Tyrion's coming and standing before what's left of the lords, the house families of the 7 kingdoms.
Right, and basically says we get to choose, and Grey Worm actually,
that whole conversation, how they talk about like who decides what happens to these 2 people who killed,
right,
who was supposed to be the queen, and so it has to be a king or a queen of the kingdoms, and so now they have to figure out who it is, and this was a great scene.
It was a great
for
scene.
many reasons.
Yeah, I love we'll touch on this because it's so funny. The uncle standing up
and starting to give like his resume.
Yeah,
for why
basically like he was campaigning.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And then just Sansa's like priceless reaction of Uncle, sit down.
Yeah, sit down, Uncle.
And then he just like awkwardly is like,
oh yeah, he was like pissed
bumps
off.
his sword on the and everything.
And then
that was hilarious. And then
go ahead.
Sam poses democracy for Westeros, and obviously they're not ready for it.
Yeah, everybody's like, that's a ludicrous idea.
Why don't I give my horse a vote? Like, that was great.
Right. Why not?
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
that was really
that
funny.
was good. And then of course go back to the amazing acting work of Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, which I'm so surprised he made it out of the
season.
Tyrion.
Yeah, Tyrion made it to the end, and he gives the plea for why. Bran the Broken, and tells this great story, and of course, he, being who he is, makes a very eloquent point of, Bran is, among all of them, has this great mythos around him now.
Right.
And not on top of that, like, he makes sense for ruling in the sense that he has a big picture mind.
Yeah.
He, being the 3-eyed raven and all that, like, if it wasn't going to be the just and noble Jon Snow, it's going to be even though he's kind of in his head a lot, the sort of higher seeing, Bran who really has a better idea of what's happening everywhere.
I mean, I thought that part was cool. I just don't, like I said, that's one of the parts to me that I didn't see foreshadowed. Maybe if I look back, it's a little too heavy for me to feel like I want to go back and watch it anytime soon.
It's gonna take a little time to cool off. And come back to it.
And of course they're gonna have spinoffs later, and we're gonna make a video about that as well.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's one part that it was kind of cool, and I kind of liked it. I heard people. It's funny because almost like their reaction to the democracy part. Like I heard people like shooting around that theory, and I was like, that'll never happen. So stupid.
Yeah, they're not gonna do that.
Yeah, it's like, or they just give it to the Onion King or Brienne.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Just
Right.
But anyway, so they make him king.
Yeah.
Then it seems like everyone's cool with it, and then of course he makes the sort of unpopular decision at the moment to not kill Tyrion,
right?
Make him his hand,
and
which
I like
is kind of hilarious because Tyrion's just like again the hand of the king, in King's Landing,
and he's like, please don't
do
this,
and so it becomes a funny kind of punishment for him,
right? And I love the I don't want it any and I don't want to be king.
So we're gonna be stuck doing things we don't want. Together.
Which, I mean, it was cool that he, was able to sit down with Bran and I guess have that conversation. But I just wish, I guess it's kind of cool that they set that up and then they didn't, as far as like him having that conversation back in Winterfell.
Yeah.
And obviously he learned about his story.
Right.
But it kind of seemed like it jumped right over to the next scene where they're drinking and having the fun. Like if they could have, like, he starts the story at least, like, because it was almost like, oh, we're gonna sit down and have this story, but then it's like, did that story ever really happen? You know, or did Bran say, I don't want to, and get it wheeled off? Obviously, he had it at this point.
Yeah.
But I guess up until that point, you didn't see it. But yeah, I mean, then I guess it goes straight to the sentencing of Jon Snow. Which is really bittersweet too.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't die.
No.
But he does end up having to go back to the wall.
He sees Ghost.
Yeah.
It's like, I wonder if they CGI'd that in because everybody was pissed that he never pet a ghost. Did they really just go back in the last 2 weeks and like, we gotta fix this.
We gotta take him back. we gotta take this back.
Yeah. That was pretty interesting.
So, I mean, we have probably one of the best scenes to kind of lighten the mood.
Yeah.
In this whole episode, which there was a few that kind of helped give it some levity, but the first meeting of the new small council,
right, that was
just a great man. You know, that also I liked it because it harkened back to the earlier seasons, because there were always like that council chamber was always kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, that was.
Because even like when it was really tense and you knew people didn't like when Tywin was there, or when the Spider and Littlefinger were there, and you knew people hated each other, but there was still like these really funny moments.
I kind of thought that he was gonna say, I see we're missing, which that's kind of skipping ahead to when Bran's there, but we'll go back because it was really funny. But when he said, we're skipping ahead, he said, we don't have a Master of Whispers or War or something like that.
Yeah, and one other.
Yeah, it was some other one. But I thought he was gonna say, don't bother, like we wouldn't need them or something. You know what I mean? Like, to a certain degree.
No, they said they have candidates. What they leave open, who they don't know. So either the characters we don't know and don't care about,
it could be Gendry, which I guess he's being
he's in his own thing. But he's part of the Seven Kingdoms still. Like, he's not in the North.
Well, we kind of skipped over, and we're gonna go back to wrapping it up. But that Sansa basically refused to.
Yeah, that was the interesting part. So we can get back to her because they have them. But the small council meeting was really.
I was kind of surprised that the Ironborn would follow him. Then if she declares herself.
Yeah, I mean,
that seemed very out of character for them, unless she just has realized, hey, we've been pillaging people for too long. Let's join the kingdom.
The Ironborn have been almost wiped out by this whole thing anyway.
Right.
And as upset as she is, I think she's a smarter ruler than the rest of her family.
Yeah.
In saying, we've got to be a part of this.
Right. And
I mean, Sansa, on the other hand, still has the whole of the North.
Yeah.
And, she knows her people and knows that they're not going to want to bow down to everybody after all of this.
Well, let's go back to the small council. What kind of stuck out to you?
I mean, of course, you had Bronn.
Yeah, that was funny.
Master of Coin.
He had so many titles.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
He's like, have we paid you back yet?
Yeah. Yes. And then going more into that. And then, of course, you have Onion.
Yeah.
Who is now the...
I don't know who he is. I can't think.
Master of Ships.
Yes, Master of Ships.
Master of Ships, and having that conversation about trying to rebuild the fleet.
Right.
But the Master of Coin would rather rebuild the brothels.
That was funny.
And of course, Brienne being the head of the King's Guard.
I guess that's who she was. I was
wearing the gold armor.
Right.
So I thought that was really fitting. I thought it was funny because I thought they were going to say it, but they just kind of let it be in the back. Like,
that's true. Because I was trying to work. Well, I was thinking she's the Master of War, but he said that they didn't have a Master of War.
She was on the King's Guard.
She was head of the King's Guard, which was kind of cool because that's who she kind of started off trying to be with.
Right, kind of a goal of hers, and taking up basically Jaime's old position, which you have that moment with her before that of filling in Jaime's story.
Yeah,
and she's kind to him.
Yeah, right.
Especially at the end.
Yeah, which, I mean, he's the one that knighted her, and, I mean, they still had that relationship together.
Yeah, no doubt. And so it was a nice kind of touching moment that they slipped in there. And I thought,
you had the Maester. being
Sam the Maester,
right?
Yeah, and not only but the Archmaester.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was one of the funny things about the Small Council.
How does that work though? Because he's not supposed to have children either, is he? I thought Maesters were supposed to be celibate as well, and he has.
Well, but that was before he. Well, they don't care. Their guidelines. They don't care.
Like,
But anyway, he is now for various reasons. Although it'd been funny, like that's one of those like little plot holes,
right?
Of like, of course, if this story went on, you could see the details. But I can imagine the Citadel was not happy about someone who literally like was there for, a short amount of time, broke their rules, left, stole some books, and all of a sudden is made like
the head
maester.
right, which I guess they have Bran, who is their history. That's who people need to just be right.
And that's another thing, because it seemed like when he was at the Citadel, the Maesters were like really resident to believe in things like the Three-Eyed Raven and the magic and all that happened. So
that was
it. I was really disappointed that, again, they didn't take the time, so they didn't really have time to fit in more of things like the Citadel and more of these other background sort of organizations within the kingdom.
Well, it was kind of interesting too that I thought, which I guess is because the Small Council. I'll jump to 2 points really quick. That Small Council, it really made me kind of like back in touch with what I really loved about the show. Right. And it was kind of like short-lived at the same time. You know what I mean? Even though I guess they couldn't go back to that, but like that just reminds you, it harkened back to the first maybe 4 seasons or so.
I think that was the scene that shows them
their nod,
things are like returning to a somewhat normal state.
Right.
Right. I mean, you don't have the tyrants of Joffrey and Cersei just like dominating everything.
Yeah.
So there is this sense of a peaceful kingdom that is trying to manage itself again.
What if Bran would have said when Sansa's like, the North will not bend the knee again. War to the North.
Yeah.
Wards into the dragon. The dragon lands there.
Yeah.
Will they not?
Of course, that was a funny kind of into the.
Yeah, that was the next point. We go ahead.
At the end of the Small Council, both like them awkwardly reciting their like normal like kind of due diligence thing to the king and just really mumbling through it, and Tyrion being like, "Oh well, this is gonna get better."
Yeah.
And he says, "Yeah." But right before that, they don't know where the dragon is.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, I'll try to find him."
He said, "Maybe I can find him."
Yeah, and so
which I wish that they would have done a little bit. I wish they would have showed the blue eyes.
So many of us like wanted to see them like
even if that was the last shot almost, or when the second to the last shot where you see his eyes turn blue and then you see Drogon and his eyes turn to blue.
Something.
Like, that would have been
that would have been really cool. But anyway,
I guess it alluded to the fact that he thought he could do that.
For the imagination, we can believe that he did that.
Yeah.
But that's also like kind of where they leave off these stories, with that openness of what could happen next for these characters.
Yeah. I guess so going right along. Unless you think there's anything more in the Small Council.
I think we're ready.
You had the kind of the send off between Jon Snow and the Sansa, Arya, and Bran. One thing I did think was a little odd was Bran's emotion change. Like he's acting like he's been so above it all, and now it's like he almost was happy to a certain degree.
Well, I think he was smirking.
Yeah.
Of course, it was hard to say what he was happy about. Like, I think he was happy that it was all finally over,
right,
and come to an end. Like,
and he knew he wasn't going to be a bad king, I guess, because who he is or whatever,
right.
Somewhat being above it all to a certain degree, and putting Tyrion in charge.
Again, he didn't want to do it. I think he knew it was his purpose, his role, to do that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so
interesting. So back to the send off. Yeah, I mean, I love the Arya. I mean, it actually showed a lot of affection between Sansa and Jon.
Yeah, that was interesting because you look all the way back to the first season, and she was really kind of the stuck-up princess who they didn't get along at all.
Right.
And now there's like this great love and respect for each other.
Yeah, that was great.
And they're like saying goodbyes.
Yeah.
And then of course Arya and Jon Snow have always had that love for each other, and
then thinking about, he said, I love that they did the tie back of where she was going to go.
Right.
West of Westeros. That was a tie back to an earlier season when she was saved by somebody. I think when she was like in the house of the the faceless, whatever it was,
The faceless god.
yeah. And she was saved by that lady because she was almost killed by her. And then she was saved by her, and she said, "Where will you go?" And she said, "What's west of Westeros?" And it was like the same thing,
Right.
like the same conversation. I thought that was really cool. I guess we can, kind of speed that along. That, he says, of course, goodbye to Bran, and basically does his apology for everything he always does. But then he's like, "You were right where you're supposed to be.
You're right where you should have been." And
I knew your queen was gonna die.
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of giveaway there for Bran, is that it seems like he, in some sense, at least knew where everything was going to shake out.
Right, and he did have that vision earlier, a few seasons ago, of that dragon over King's Landing, which was kind of interesting. Now, and he was the one that had Jon Snow. He's like, has to tell Jon Snow. We have to tell Jon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was the most pointed about that. So it's like he knew that would spark everything emotion. That maybe would drive Dany
the
crazy.
Dominoes, certain things had to happen for.
And he planned it all.
Yeah, he was the mastermind.
Yes, and he was smiling about it. No, that was just it was really cool how they did that. I thought the imagery in the beginning about them not the beginning, but them burning the Iron Throne was cool.
Right.
So Arya on the ship.
Arya's on the ship going off the map.
Right.
And taking her
Sansa's
equipment
on the throne.
Sansa's on the throne in the north.
Yeah, Queen of the North.
Which, has it's independent but in good standing with the Six Kingdoms.
Right. They get really progressive all of a sudden, those backwards Northmen. They let a queen be there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, they did build that up properly, I think.
I did, of course. She was a genius throughout this whole thing. At least towards the end of this series.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah,
to be honest, we could talk about this in our other conversations about the whole series, but I have to say, just Sansa is the one character who had the most dramatic change and story arc.
Right, and
because it went from
satisfying.
Because it went from literally in the first 2-3 seasons being for me personally, the character I was most annoyed about.
Right.
The whole time.
Yeah.
And then she of course she had terrible things happen to her.
Right.
But she did turn it around for good. She did use that to build into strength, and I thought that was a great, especially in the previous episode where, she has that conversation with the Hound.
Right.
And just says it openly that all those things made her this great person now, who she was.
So I guess this takes us to maybe the most unsatisfying ending to a certain degree, that Jon. Cause
rides to the wall.
Right, and he's going to be back at the Night's Watch. It's kind of fitting, but at the same time, it's kind of definitely that bittersweet. Obviously him killing Dany was the worst. I guess the most bittersweet.
Yeah, he has to live with that.
Right, but the fact that he, he's tried to do the most noble thing throughout the entire series, and yet he's the one that ends back up at the wall.
Yeah, where he started.
Right, and then that's the lead off where he's, riding off with the people, the wildlings, he's taking them back. If it looked like when the door shut, it was his thought of, hey, I'm not coming back here.
Yeah, I thought that.
But I wish we would have saw Ghost. If we would have saw Ghost with him, it would have solidified the thought process for me.
But at the same time, who's to say he can't have that life back and forth?
Right.
Because at the same time, there's a giant hole in the wall.
Right.
At this point, because of everything that's happened, they know the point of the wall is not to keep the wildlings out.
Right.
And the wildlings don't, other than needing to be supplied, and Jon Snow being willing to supply them, have no reason to get past the wall and raid people.
Yeah. To quickly wrap this up, what are your? I guess you liked it, right?
I liked it, and I thought it was one of the better endings to a series of this magnitude.
Yeah, I think that they definitely rushed to get here, but they wound up sticking the landing.
Absolutely, sticking the landing. Tyrion's story ended up redeeming him at the end.
Almost happier than I expected it to after they got past the really
best possible ending for them.
Well, appreciate you guys staying here with us.
Yeah.
And
let us know what you thought about this episode.
And we'll have a lot more stuff coming. Like and subscribe, and we're out of here.
Bye.